and they are afraid. It's official. A New York Times opinion piece says, let's scrap the presidential debates. I can't imagine why they'd want to do this. By Elizabeth Drew, she says that they've become unrevealing quip contests. Well, you didn't have problems with Hillary being engaged in a quip contest, but I suppose when your favorite candidate is the mentally degenerating Joe Biden, yeah, you might have a few issues. Nervous managers of the scheduled 2020 presidential debates. Which ones? Which nervous managers, please tell us, are shuffling the logistics and locations to deal with the threat of the coronavirus? But here's a better idea. Scrap them all together and not for health reasons. Yeah, yeah. I don't think you would want to scrap them for health reasons either. At least you're being honest about that. The debates were never made sense as a test for presidential leadership. Oh, wow. Okay. So you're implying that a presidential candidate's presence in a room is not sufficient enough to be an accurate measurement of whether the American people actually want them in charge. That's an interesting notion. In fact, one could argue they reward precisely the opposite of what we want in a president. Really? Really? That's... So, getting to hear the candidates speak, give off their ideas against the alternative idea proposer, is in your opinion, not informative to the American people. Well, I guess you could put it that way if you don't get what you want out of them, but going on. When we were serious about the presidency, oh good God. When we were serious about the presidency, she speaks down to us condescendingly. We wanted intelligence, thoughtfulness, knowledge, empathy, and to be sure, likability. It should also go without saying dignity. No, not always. Not necessarily so. Sometimes, when we're serious about the presidency, we have other things, other characteristics that might come to the fore, like a backbone, a spine, a love of country, patriotism. These things might be more important than, say, empathy. I'm just saying. And the American people maybe should have a say in what they're looking for in the president in any given election year. Maybe. Yet the debates play an outsized role in campaigns and weigh more heavily on the verdict than their true value deserves. In other words, people might see your candidate and they might not like what they see. To be perfectly clear. Perhaps the most substantive televised debate of all was the first one between JFK and Richard Nixon, which Nixon was considered to have won on substance on the radio, while the cooler and more appealing Kennedy won on television. Since these weren't true debates, the concept of winning one of these odd encounters was always amorphous. To be sure, many questions by panels of journalists were designed less to stimulate debate than to challenge one of the candidates. Yes, we understand that when your journalist panels go to throw out questions, that Donald Trump will be at a severe disadvantage. And despite all of that, you want to cancel the debates because Joe Biden's a bumbling buffoon who can't string together a proper sentence. Which is why you want to cancel them. Just be honest. Over time, the debates came to resemble professional wrestling matches, which is kind of cool and what the American public deserves, thank you. And more substantive debates were widely panned in the press. Points went to snappy comebacks and one-liners, because, having a witty comeback is a sign of a good of good mental health. It's your ability to interact with world leaders. It's the ability to engage and be able to form a coherent thought on the fly. It is seriously a admirable presidential value, and Americans know this instinctively. Witty remarks drew laughs from the audience and got repeated for days and remembered for years. Yeah, because it's what Americans want. Some of them have been less than hilarious, but they did the job of dominating reaction to the debate. Yeah. Whatever substance existed was largely ignored. In 1980, when Ronald Reagan debated the incumbent Jimmy Carter, Carter made a serious point about Reagan's position on health care, and Reagan's reposit, there you go again, a non answer, if there ever was one, brought down the House, and that was that. Well, I'm sorry, but if Jimmy Carter had a penchant for a BS point about healthcare, perhaps the audience and the public at home already knew that that point was bunk. And Reagan knew that everyone else knew that it was bunk and chose to ignore it. You know, perhaps the American people do deserve to see how the opposite person will treat the issue. Obviously, the American people did not want to treat Medicare as a serious issue. They wanted to focus on other things. You don't understand how the cultural influence of a president's demeanor towards a particular issue might determine how Americans vote for them. And the fact that it brought down the House should have been an indication that Jimmy Carter was out of touch with the base. In the first 1984 debate, Reagan, seeking re-election and at 73, the oldest person to be nominated for the presidency, seemed tired and tended to wander off mentally at times. So we have an instance of a Republican who, despite not being mentally at the top of his game, still having to participate in this what we can call now an American tradition of presidential candidates hashing their ideas out live on a stage. What's the problem? His lackluster performance caused panic among his staff. Democratic supporters of the former Vice President Walter Mondale saw an opening. But then another debate soon followed. Thoroughly prepared, Reagan got off the crack. I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience, because Ronald Reagan was one of the best orators of all time. Of course, his age wasn't going to stop him from performing on a debate stage. We, however, cannot say the same for Joe Biden, can we? And you are more than aware of this fact. The audience roared, and Mr. Mondale feigned a laugh, knowing he was cooked. Yes, he was. Not even Reagan's ending of that debate, reminiscing about driving along the Pacific coast and musing about time capsules, was enough to undermine his political prospects. Reagan's joke aimed at nullifying the age issue dominated the post-debate chatter. Yeah, and it was brilliant. The reason you're writing this article is because Joe Biden is incapable of pulling this off. You're not talking about Ronald Reagan's ability to lead. You're talking about Joe Biden's inability to be just as effective. But what is the point or relevance of the carefully prepared one-liner? It's as spontaneous as a can of sardines. In your mind, you don't know this. You're not the one who had to prepare and say it. Good God, woman. It's usually delivered from a memory chip in the mind, having been fashioned and rehearsed with aids. When is a president called down to put down an interlocutor, be it a member of Congress or foreign leader? Why is that any of your damn business? You, madam, will never be president, God willing. This, by the way, isn't written in any concern that Donald Trump will prevail over Joe Biden in the debates. Sure it is. No one here believes you. Mr. Biden has done just fine with a long string of such contests. Okay, hang on. Are you seriously implying that Joe Biden's performance against Bernie Sanders and the rest of the insane Democratic primary debacle is evidence of his competence? The DNC steamrolled over Bernie, Kamala Harris, and Tulsi Gabbard, who should have won the nomination, but she got burned this time around. She's Bernie 2.0. But you seriously want to compare the merit of winning the nomination of the DNC as evidence of Biden's ability to hold himself in a debate? You're insane and disingenuous. Oh, the point is that winning a debate, however assessed, should be irrelevant, as are the debates themselves. Most of America would disagree with you, darling. The better way to pay attention to and choose among presidential candidates is to follow the long campaign that so many complain about. The reason for such moaning has always been a mystery, because unless the campaign is taking place in your living room, you can simply switch it off. Well, then why did you motherfuckers bitch so much about Trump's rallies? I mean, seriously, you used COVID as an excuse to try and cancel Trump's rallies. And yet you're saying that the debate should be canceled in favor of following the long campaign? So you're okay with rallies now, I suppose. Why? Because Joe Biden won't have to debate? I'm not following this lady. The keywords are pay attention to, because over the stretch of 2015-2016, it wasn't impossible to see the implications of a Trump presidency. Hang on. I get what she's saying. Let the media dictate the terms of the battlefield instead of the actual candidates. Huh. How about no? How about the American people actually decide from themselves without the goddamn filter of the press? How about that? Not just the vulgarity, but the ignorance and insensitivity and extreme narcissism were apparent more than a year before before election day. So clearly, you're pretty much admitting that the debates helped Trump, and you don't want people to see the debates without the filter of the media lens. You're upset that we can access Trump directly, that we can access Joe Biden directly, rather than your interpretation of them. Is that sounding about right? Moreover, we didn't need the debates to tell us that Trump had chosen to be the P.T. Barnum of American politics. Bitch, the presidency and the process by which that whole debacle came to be has been a P.T. Barnum for the last 30 fucking years. Don't blame Donald Trump for being better at it than the establishment, you fucking hack. Ugh. She claims that for him it was and still is all about the show and distracting the public from reality. It was obvious that Mr. Trump had no affinity for the working class people whose votes he was chasing, except for the fact that he's actually helping them get jobs. And he's improving their economies, even in spite of a massive shutdown, even in spite of COVID. Once all this bullshit ends, the economy will jump right back, and that's what you're terrified of. Like, honestly, in all these executive orders he has signed to help out people really struggling in this pandemic, this alleged pandemic, seriously, you don't have a leg to stand on. With all of these claims about the votes he's chasing, he has improved the lives of middle-class America significantly, and you have no alternative. Nothing in his life suggested that his heart was with struggling workers and farmers, except for the ones who voted for him. It wasn't impossible to know that he wasn't the skilled businessman he professed to be, except for his successful multi-billion-dollar businesses. His bankruptcies and shady business practices and discrimination against black tenants were no secret. Discrimination against black tenants. I'm pretty sure there's more to that story. Because I've also seen the black women that he chose to lead and construct his buildings. It's not like you're seriously spouting off nonsense. The debates took us nowhere near the realities about arguably the most disastrous president in our history. They became simply another tool in his arsenal. Yes, but they're American tools, and that's why we have them. Because in a fair exchange of ideas, you have to have debates with your potential leaders and between your potential leaders. The party conventions also vestigial organs of a political system that no longer exists are close to being done away with, if not for reasons they should be. There's no reason to not throw the presidential debates on the trash heap of useless, at best, rituals that are no help in our making such a fateful decision. Well, at least she admitted that the DNC is a fucking front. But no, this this whole thing is a gigantic salt mine of Orange Trump, Orange Man bad, and holy shit, Joe Biden is going to get pummeled, and we are afraid of losing our power for another 4 years. Godspeed, and may the debates go on.